I got Shawn Frankl here. He's one of the greatest powerlifters of all time, and we wanted to tell the story kind of your gym, Big Iron Gym, the meaning of the name behind it, and how you met Rick Hussey, and kind of the stories of the journey of training with him, everything in the gym, and also just your battles with West Side and stuff like that. And so if you could start on that stuff, that'd be awesome.
Okay. How I met Rick. Grew up powerlifting, doing high school meets, just like everybody. It was kind of, you know, some, I guess, high schools had teams and whatnot. But I mean, I just did it as a hobby. I've always enjoyed lifting weights. So, not knowing anything about really powerlifting and just knowing those bench, squat, deadlift, I just jumped into it, trying it out, not really having any plans, any type of workouts for it, just going to the gym and lifting weights, obviously, not knowing anything. But as I got into it, I saw that, I just really enjoyed it. I like the challenge, challenging myself to do better. And I think there's something like tangible, I think um, that that draws people into powerlifting because you can actually see your results. You can see and feel like you are getting better. And I think that ties people into powerlifting because, a lot of times you might do something and you don't see the results instantly. It takes time. And so does powerlifting. But when you are hitting new numbers, there's something too that's very addictive to that. And to see that, wow, I am getting better at something. If I keep doing this, I want to keep getting better. And then you hit new numbers and it's real tangible because you see that happening.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I got hooked, I guess, just like a lot of people do. And part of that was, so I live in Sioux City, Iowa, so about an hour and 20 minutes away from Omaha, Nebraska, where Big Iron Gym started with when Rick opened that. And so I started doing powerlifting meets in Omaha because they had powerlifting meets in Omaha. Um, you know, non-sanctioned meets, just open meets, and that's where I met Rick is at a just non-sanctioned meet in Omaha, just doing it
Oh,
for
so
fun.
you were competing on your own.
I was just doing it on my own. Yeah.
Was there a
And
connection there where like he found out where you were from or something, or was it just like he was like, was he impressed by you or something, or like how did the
yeah,
connection
like
made?
yeah, like I didn't know anything about Rick and his lifters or any of that stuff at that time. But by doing these meets, that this guy that uh, we know, a mutual person, um, he actually is the one that got Rick into powerlifting, and but this guy would hold powerlifting meets. Well, I would go down and do this guy's meet, and Rick would have his lifters do that same meet as well. And that's when I ran into Rick and Big Iron. Um, at first, it wasn't even Big Iron Gym. He had a gym called Elite. It was called Elite
Oh,
Gym.
really?
Yeah, and and then later on, he started Big Iron Gym. But when I met him, it was still Elite back then, and we would do the same powerlifting meets. So I met Rick doing the meets, and he saw that I was pretty strong and doing everything probably wrong. And he's like, hey, you got to come down here and train. And, I think you could be pretty strong. And so I was like, yeah, because that's what I wanted is to keep getting better and learn how to do that. And so when he, said, why don't you come on down and start training? I mean, I just took him up on it, even though I lived a little ways away. I didn't look at things that way. Like I looked at it like, wow, this great coach is really close to me. I mean, I think half of everything that we do in our life is how we look at each opportunity. And I think that's really, really, really big deal. That's a whole nother subject, but I think it's very important because I know a lot of people. I mean, I train a lot of lifters now. So I hear, what
Yeah.
goes. I hear, oh man, man, I worked this many hours this week, or man, I really don't have the time. I really would love to do this, man. How can I do this? But like, you got to ask yourself, like, how bad do you really want something? And do you really want it? And what are you going to do? What are you willing to give up? What are you going to be willing to sacrifice to reach those goals? You know? And for me, my outlook in general, my first thing, without a doubt, my first thing is, wow, man, I can come train with these guys. They're only like an hour and 20 minutes away. That's awesome. They could be 4 hours away and I would still probably go, but they would be 4 hours away. And I'm looking at it like, man, I only got to drive an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah,
Some
yeah. You're like,
people,
I'm glad it's not on the other side of the world or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, but some people are like, come to the gym, and they're like, man, I got to drive 20 minutes to get there, man. It's just kind of out of my way. I'm like, yeah, you don't want it. You don't want it at all at that point. So, like, you kind of know who to not say waste your time, but like, I'm pretty upfront with people. And like, if they want something bad enough, they have to know what the commitment level is to achieve what their goal is. And don't expect to be a world class athlete when you're not willing to invest driving across town. I mean, you don't want it. You're thinking you want it, you really don't want it, And I just help them to be more realistic of what they see, and how the path and the journey would really actually look like. And once you explain the actual journey of how things are going to go, they might opt out, you know powerlifting is especially one of those where I always tell people, you have to love to powerlift to be a powerlifter, because especially at a high level, especially because you're going to get hurt. You're going to feel beat up most of the time. And you should probably expect that. I mean, most of the time, you're not going to walk around feeling like, oh man, I feel great. Nothing hurts on my body, man. I feel awesome. It's really not going to be that way. It's really going to be like you really feel kind of beat up, but you're just striving to reach a desire that you have at a high level of desiring to hit a goal that you really want. And that really overrides, I would say, almost everything, is that desire that you have. And like you were saying earlier, like, oh, some people might think, oh, you're just genetic freak, this and that. I really don't believe that any of that stuff. I believe you have to really want something really bad. And I think, how bad do you really want it? And it's like kind of like, how like you can turn on a switch when you're about to hit you're stepping up to a big weight, and inside you got to kick it up a notch. And you can bring on a lot of strength and energy just off of you by getting yourself mentally in that zone.
Yeah.
And like, you can mentally really turn it on, and you can talk. You could probably tell when you're talking to intense people that are very intense. I mean, look at Mike Tyson. You probably don't need to get in a ring to understand that this guy's pretty intense,
Yeah.
right? You can
Yeah.
feel this dude. He's like, this guy, he's intense. Well, it's the same thing. I think you can bring that on. You can bring that intensity on, mentally and physically. And so, like, what it takes to do that, to flip that switch on, for me, it comes from in your heart. And how bad do you want something? And so, for me, you can flip that switch on and you can do that, but it's how bad do you want it? And it's not just the day of the meet. It's, okay, man, you're in the gym, man. You got like, a couple of these big sets left and you're feeling beat up. What talk do you have in your head? Like, what's going through your mind? Like me, I am probably in my head fighting myself. Like, if you could see two people battling it out, that's what goes on in my head half of the time, because I hate to hear you can't do this. So obviously when my dad said you'll never be able to do this, to me, that is like fighting words. Like, I will never accept that. In my brain, like the way it works and how I see things, that's not an option. and I hate excuses. So even when I feel myself, even the feeling of, oh man, like, oh man, I tore my oblique, and oh shit, like how am I gonna? No, you figure a way out. You figure it out. Like, do you want to do this or do you just want to give up? I mean, like it's a battle going on in my head like all the time when I was powerlifting. So um, I just would tell you, I think I just wanted it really bad, and I just told myself nobody will want it more than me. That's what I told myself. Like, there's nobody that's going to want it more than I want it. And then I have to, and I lived that, I didn't just like, oh, say that. Like I felt it in here. Like nobody's going to want this more than me because I will do about anything to get what I need to do. And that's how I felt when I was powerlifting. So, I mean, like you maybe heard different times. I mean, like when I was sick, I mean, and not smart things. I mean, I wasn't smart because I was learning, but like if I was sick, I would have my wife just I don't care. In my mind, it's already set. Drive me there. I don't care if I'm sick. I'm not missing. And I'm an hour and 20, 30 minutes away. So like if I can't drive, but you're gonna just drive me there, drop me off, and go shopping or something. Just pick me up because I'm not missing a workout. And it wouldn't matter if there's guys even that lived in Omaha right by Big Iron, if they couldn't make it to the gym because it got snowed out or whatever. I always made it. I'm like, I don't care if I got to leave 4 hours ahead of time and I got to drive 20 miles an hour. Like, I'm like, Rick, I'm going to be there. No matter what, I'll be there. Like I never missed one training day. Never missed. I just wouldn't. But that was just in my head. I'm not saying that's necessary now looking back, but that is where I was at the time. At the time, I would not in my head, I couldn't miss a workout. I didn't really want to either, but that's how bad I would say like I wanted it. And I was talking about Rick, so meeting Rick and the characteristics of Rick, um, he just approached every person a little different. Like you said, you had that coach that would kick you, and that's saying something to you. Rick was pretty until you get to know him, you might hate the guy. He's kind of a dick because he is. I was weird. I was just talking to my wife about this the other day because she never really got to meet Rick. Um, she's kind of an introvert, so she really would be like feel awkward being around somebody like him because he's kind of quiet. He acts like he don't really like you at first because he wants to just really be around people that are real. Like he doesn't really want to have time for fake, phony people. He doesn't want those people in his life, which I can relate. Like you want people in your life that are real. And I don't even care if they don't even believe like me. That's fine. At least I know who I'm dealing with. I mean, and that's how Rick was. He just didn't let people get close to him. It took time, because he just wanted you want a real relationship. Whatever I want, I just want to make sure it's real. But the one thing about Rick, no matter where he was or what he was doing, he was always the same. He was never different. You see some people and they hang around this group of friends, they're like that. They're around these people, they're like that. Like Rick, man, he's Rick, the same Rick, no matter who he's around. I mean, he was not like that. But if you were a consistent person, you showed up, you were the same guy every day, you were consistent, he's slowly going to invest time in you. But it's like, and I mean, really, if you really look at it, people in some ways, we can learn from this because, even as I gotten older, I've had to kind of learn this honestly, like to trust people on different levels. Because, I mean, trust is actually earned. You shouldn't just trust everybody the same because they really haven't earned it yet and the right to do that, right? So you can get burned a lot in life if you just think, well, I'm going to be all in, and then that you find out they're not all in. right? So I learned that from Rick is like, you kind of got to earn his trust. And the longer the relationship, you guys build each other's trust. And then that forms like a stronger relationship. And I think that's all, like, all people. I think it's healthy for all people to do that, because maybe we would view people differently and have different types of relationships if we knew that, right? Because what comes along with that is expectations. So the same expectation you might have for somebody that has really been a solid guy, girl in your life would be different than somebody that kind of makes different decisions. Some one day they're cold and then they're hot. I mean, you're probably going to have a different expectation for that person, right? So maybe it wouldn't set yourself up for failure, thinking that everybody's at your level, because you could get burnt, And I think, Rick had a hard life. So he had a lot of people. He's been burned a lot. He had reasons to have walls up. Um, he lived in a neighborhood where you just don't trust a lot of people. And, Rick, he really lived a rough life. But, you know, it's crazy to watch somebody's life change a lot too over the years and become, like, I don't know, softer in some ways. Um, you just see them change as a person. They their outlook maybe changes a little bit. Like I said, he didn't trust a lot of people, but in time, um, as you proved it to him, you could earn his trust. And I like that, because I don't mind earning somebody's trust, because I feel like that's the right way to be on both ends. So now we're both solid people. But I think, you also, like, being a Christian, I want to be sensitive to people at the same time. Um, I don't like being judged. I hate being judged. So I don't like to judge anybody. So I like going into relationships where I'm not going to judge anybody, but I'm going to accept people for where they are. And we're all at different places in life, and I would say that that's fine, right? Um, but to judge somebody when nobody really has the right to do that, only God has the right to judge people. That's ultimately all that really matters. But we can still be a big influence on people that maybe aren't at the same trust level as we are, right? I'm probably getting way off topic here, but I'm just rolling with it, man.
No, no, man, it's like I had said before we started recording this, like your interviews like impacted me so much, and it's crazy, like just hearing you talk about trust, because I just think that's one of the most important things in life, and to hear you talk about it, it's kind of amazing, like because you're saying it, it's like not a feeling, it's action, and like you said, it's built and it's earned, and I think it's something too that you have to want as well. Like you're talking about wanting to be a great power lifter, and that was the key to your success. I think that that's true about trust too, which is such a it's just such a powerful thing, and it sounds like that was a maybe Rick never said that, but it was a huge value of his, and it must be a I'm guessing it's a cornerstone value or pillar or whatever of Big Iron Gym. It's from what it sounds like. It sounds like it's a really big deal to you too. And I just love hearing you talk about. You were saying that people say, "Hey, like it's the feeling." They have the feeling like I want to be a great power lifter. But just like Christianity, right? In the Bible it says count the cost before you decide to follow Jesus, because there's a huge cost, and if you're not willing to pay it, you might as well not do it. There's so many people that they want to just have that feeling like, "Oh, I believe in Jesus," but I've thought a lot about what does it mean to believe? Like believing is not it comes with action. I believe the light switch will turn the light on, so that's why I flip the switch. It's not, what I mean? Like there's an action that goes along with your belief. I believe that I'll live longer if I live this way, so I do it. It's not something that you just feel inside. And so,
Yeah.
no, man, keep going with this stuff, man. This is great.
You brought up, believing. I guess if you would say you're a believer, right? Then you would say you have faith, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
so my question would be for people like if you say you have faith, how strong is your faith? Because that's really what we're talking about, right? So like I believe and I have faith, but to what level do you have faith? Because what if God was asking you to do something? Like, will you do it? And maybe it's an uncomfortable position, you know? I mean, when you brought this up, my brain just went to somewhere else. And I'll tell you, I didn't never said this on a anything like this, but I'll tell you this. Um, I went to do a bodybuilding show one time, and like so the first, when you go and you do your morning prejudging in the morning, right? So I went, did the prejudging, things went great, whatever. Then about the time after prejudging, um, everybody was wanting to get something to eat, and I had a bunch of friends and stuff that came to watch, and I was just like, you know what, you guys go eat something good. I got some of my own food up in my hotel room. I'm just gonna go back to my hotel room and chill out, put my legs up, and eat what I wanted to eat. My stomach wouldn't be upset and whatnot. And I said, "You guys go eat, man." So my friends and a bunch of people, they all went to eat, and I just went back to my room. So I went back to my room and sitting there at the desk, that most rooms have by the phone, and I'm eating my food, and I kind of have my legs kicked up. And the cleaning lady, the gal came to clean the room, and I was just like, come on in, don't mind me, man, just go ahead and you know clean or whatever, man, don't let me be in your way. So she came in and she's cleaning and she's like, "So what brings you to town?" And I told her, the show, and told her I got this gym and whatever. And we just had some small talk, right? Well, somewhere in that small talk and in between that, I'm sitting there and God puts something upon me. And he says, "Hey, you need to pray for her." And if anybody thinks that that's what I was thinking about, you're crazy, because I wasn't. That didn't run through my brain at all. And out of nowhere, he's like, "Hey, you need to pray for her." Okay, here's an awkward position right here for me. This feels
yeah,
really awkward. I don't know her. She doesn't know me from anything. And I'm supposed to pray for her. Well, no matter how weird it felt, I mean, I know when God talks to me, and he was telling me to do that. So in my head, I'm going, "Oh, great. Here we go again. You asking me to do something. I don't know how this is going to go and don't even know what this is for." So I'm like, "All right." So I say to the girl, I'm like, "Hey, this might sound crazy, but do you mind if I pray for you?" And she's like, "Oh, yeah, that's fine." And I don't think she really understood. I'm like, "Well," I said, "when I pray for people, I'm going to lay my hand on you. I'm going to pray for you." And she's just like, "Oh, okay." She's standing over by the bathroom, like usually right when you walk in the door, there's a bathroom to your left or right. She's in that area where she's, in between the doorway of the bathroom. So I get up to walk over there, and I'm thinking, "God, you better know what you're doing, because I don't know what I'm praying for. I don't even know what this is about. But all I know is you're telling me to do this, and I'm doing what you told me. So you better, you better, whatever needs to come out, you better do the talking." And so I don't know. I lay my hand on her and I just start praying for her. And I don't know, whatever came into my mind, like that I felt that. I mean, I don't know. I didn't even really know what I was doing. I just said whatever I felt God was putting in my brain. And, wasn't, probably 20, 30 seconds into it, man, and she's crying. I don't know what's going on with her. I don't have a clue. And I did what I was supposed to do. I prayed for her, And she was like, "Hey, thanks. That really meant a lot." And that's it. That's it. That's all, right? I just did something that I was told to do. I didn't need to know further. I didn't need, like, I think some people need to know, well, if I do that, well, then how's this going to go? And how's that going to go? Man, I don't know nothing. All I know is God told me to just do this, and I just did that, and I didn't know what was going to happen. So, to move forward, um, later in the day, we went to the night show, finished the bodybuilding show, went great, went and ate a whole bunch of terrible food, felt half sick, you know. Uh, get back to my room. I'm going to go to bed that night. And I'm kind of laying in bed and I'm thinking about early in the day, this thing. And I'm just like, you just talk to God in your thoughts. You just kind of talk to him. And I was just like, God, you don't owe me anything. No explanation. You don't even have to know. You don't have to answer anything that I'm about to say. But I know you know my heart and you see where I'm coming from because I can't fool you. You obviously know what I'm already going to say, but you know me. And I said, man, like you say to come to you like a father. So I'm coming to you like you're my father. And I want to be open. And I'm just like, I just would love to know that sometimes when you tell me to do things, that it's really because you told me to do it. It's not something that I thought in my head and then did. It's just I knew that it was directly, really, actually from you. And I said, you don't even, I mean, why does he deserve to tell me this? He doesn't. I don't deserve that. And I just said that to him, but I'm just talking to him anyway, right? So I just
Yeah.
had that conversation with him. I just I just want to know that's from him, not me doing it. I don't really want to do it. If I'm the one doing it, I don't want to do it. I only want to do it if God's wanted me to do it, right? In circumstances like that. So, I kind of laid back down and I was trying to get comfortable and then I was going to try and go to sleep. And right as I laid down and I was just getting like comfortable, God said to me, just popped right into my brain out of nowhere. She was going to commit suicide. She was going to commit suicide. And I placed you where I had you because I knew you would do what I'm telling you to do. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay. Like, I was overwhelmed, honestly. I feel like God just talked to me and told me this. Like, this is. And then he said, tomorrow you will know that this was me because when you go to leave tomorrow and you go to leave and get in the hallway, he said, like 3 times, he said, when you get into the hallway, when everyone's in the hallway, when you're all in the hallway, she'll come out of a room across the hall from me. So like I'm kind of like picturing this in my head and I'm thinking, okay, this is really weird because like tomorrow still is going to come and I wonder how this is actually going to play out, right? So the next morning came, uh, my family, we went down to the lobby and there was we had the breakfast there. So we ate the breakfast and then me and my son went down to get one of those carts to put your luggage on, so you could just load everything up all in the cart. And as me and him came up, went up the elevator, and then we were coming down the long hallway of the hotel, I saw the cleaning uh, things out in the hallway. And I'm like, I want to see if that girl's out here. I mean, I'm paying attention, right? And so, like, we're walking down, and I see 2 other ones, and I didn't see her. And I'm like, maybe she doesn't work on the weekends. Like, I don't know, because it's the weekend. I'm like, well, maybe she's not working today. But anyway, so I was like, I'm just paying attention because I know what happened to me the night before and what I was told. So, like, obviously I'm paying attention. Who wouldn't? So I just go in the room and we finish, putting everything away, putting our things in our suitcase, you know, making sure we get everything out of the room. We load the whole thing up. And once we had it all loaded up, so we go to get in the hallway. And so like I pull it out in the hallway But then I still got my kids in the room, and I was waiting for everyone to get out in the hallway. And I'm looking around, nothing, nobody's coming out, nothing. But as soon as we all got in the hallway, and shut the door, the lady started walking out of the room next to me. And I was like, wow.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that is God answering me. He told me what he was going to do. He did that, and he answered me. That was me telling you what to do, to be in that room, to do something very simple. It's a simple thing. Pray for somebody, right? That shouldn't be a hard thing. And he let me know also that, hey, that was me telling you to do that. That wasn't you. So, a lot of times we might have the thought, did I really think that up, or is God really telling me to do this or that? You should probably listen, because it is actually God talking. But it was nice, man. That was like a reward for me. I felt like I didn't deserve it. He
Yeah.
didn't have to tell me this, but also I think I never really planned him to tell me. I mean, there's been a million times I've maybe said things like that I don't really expect to get an answer, and it doesn't mean my relationship with God is not going to change at all, depending on if He answers me or not, because I really don't deserve that. And I think, people maybe even watching, like, if He did that every time people asked, we'd be like little babies. How are you going to grow? And you wouldn't really reach out to God a whole lot if every time you needed a little something, He answered you. So, people are like, well, I don't know if God's real or this or that. Well, I mean, that's everybody's journey is going to look different, and God's going to talk to people differently depending on, maybe He knows where you're at. And maybe He already knew, like, I know that no matter what, if I answer Him or not, He's going to serve me no matter what. So, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to answer Him this time, because He's going to do it no matter what, you know, because I was, no matter what. But I don't know. For me, that was one time of, talking about have faith, believing, and then having faith, and then trusting that God's going to show up and handle this deal. It's something so small, but like, when have you been in an uncomfortable position where you did what you were just told and you felt like, man, I'm out of control here? you know so I'd say that comes along with it, you know is if you believe and you have faith, acting it out is a lot harder than it may feel or sound sometimes. And now, relating that back to powerlifting, I really believed and trusted in Rick a lot too. If Rick told me I could lift something, I just 100% knew if it's on the bar, I can lift it. He would never put anything on the bar if he didn't think I couldn't lift it. So half of the time, honestly, I didn't even know what was on the bar. I didn't really pay attention. I just
Wow.
knew that the technique of what I was doing had to be that much more precise. And so my focus was more on the technique and being tight, loading the things I need to load so everything would come up the way it would, or press the way it should. So, you know, but we built that relationship of trust that we were talking about with Rick. It took time. Takes time to build that kind of trust. And I'm real grateful and thankful for all the times, I had with Rick. Here we're coming up, close on December 30th. It'll be, my daughter was in here talking to me before I got on here, and she's like, it's gonna be almost 13 years, I believe, since Rick's passed. He died in 2010, December 30th. So it just amazed. I can't even believe that much time has already gone by. So it shows, like, our life here is pretty short. Um, but I wanted to keep Rick's legacy alive. And that's what I'm doing. We had talks about it before he passed, and he wanted me to call it Shawn Frankl's Big Iron. I didn't really want to do that. I said that sounds not right, because I've always went to Rick Hussey's Big Iron gym, so it really sounded weird to me. But he always wanted to. He's like, just call it Shawn Frankl's Big Iron. You have to, because you're in Sioux City. Everybody knows you. You got to do it like that. And I'm just like, well, when he passed, then I was like, okay, that's what he wanted, whatever. Um, so that's where we're at. I'm trying to keep it alive for him. We do, a powerlifting meet, a memorial meet, which we do it the last weekend in February. every year as a memorial meet for Rick. And we usually have it's like a 2 day meet. We have a really good turnout. So usually it's pretty fun. We get to, either show like a clip of Rick and, so like we kind of, people can understand. A lot of people here understand Rick because we talk about him and try and keep that alive. So it's crazy how, one person can impact a lot of people. And as it gets carried on, it still impacts people.
How did you become a believer in God? Like, how did that happen?
Well, I mean, I grew up Catholic, and my parents were going through a rough time at one time, and they knew they just kind of needed like something more. They didn't really know what. Um, they needed something more like a personal relationship, I think, and we started going to a different church, and I think it just kind of really opened their eyes to like how real having an actual daily relationship with God is. And through that, it kind of opened my eyes to like, I mean, I went and said prayers when I was Catholic, and it was more like for me personally, nothing wrong with, I'm not saying anything with different religions or whatever, but for me personally, I probably was just going through actions and saying words, and I never had something like, my heart wasn't, it needed more of a relationship and more understanding, maybe like, you know, why should I believe what I believe? And how come, like, I needed something more. And when we switched to a different church, and then I guess like going to some youth camps that I went to, um, I guess when I went to a youth camp, that's really where I really felt the calling, like I want God in my life. Like I actually want him in my life. And I understood maybe that God's actually um he wants to look out for you. I think, me and my dad didn't have a real great relationship growing up, so a lot of times my self-talk was like things weren't good enough, and that like that kind of talk. And I kind of maybe felt like that's the way God was, maybe before I actually understood God. I kind of think maybe God's probably always like, oh, you're never doing good enough, Shawn. Like like that kind of talk. And when I realized that, God's nothing like that. Like God is loving, and God is wanting to keep you from hurt. He wants to keep you and protect you from all these things. People look at like, the 10 Commandments, man, if you're a Christian, you can't have any fun, all this. I mean, no, he's actually trying to protect you, because if you actually did the things, the commandments, he's looking out for people. He's looking out for relationships. He's looking out for broken homes. He's looking out for people that get sucked into depression and that lead you down a long road. And the devil's the one that wants to tell you, oh man, you can't have no fun. Go over here and do these things. Well, half of those things, man, they're going to wreck your life. They're going to wreck your kids' life, and a whole chain of reactions is going to happen. And we're all guilty of listening to that voice and making wrong decisions sometimes. We all make wrong decisions. There's no perfect person. That's like what I was saying earlier. I don't like to be judged because I don't like judging other people, because I don't want to be judged. So I'm just real. I don't judge people when they come in here, man. I've had people come in here straight from prison that done all kinds of different things. And I'm like, listen, man, we're all starting on the same foot, man. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm protective of my people in here because it's like a family. So I don't have a problem getting rid of somebody either. And, like going back to like even Rick and training at Big Iron, it's like some people are like, oh man, you're a Christian, you must be a pussy or something. Try me out, man. I'm not a pussy. I'll just be real. Like, I'm not. But I believe what I believe. I belong strongly what I believe, and I will be the first person to help you. But Christians aren't wimps. They don't have to be. You can be a strong person, and you can have a backbone too. And I think people get confused that's not right. And I don't know. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I'm not that way. And I want somebody to know that just because you're a Christian, you're not a weak person. It's just how you look at things differently. And I'm more accepting to any person that walks in here. I'll be the first person to invite somebody in here to do things for people. But I'm not perfect, and I tell everybody right when they come in, man, I am not perfect. You can look at my life. I got all kinds of crazy things that's been wrong in my own life, but I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to learn from my mistakes. I never intentionally want something bad, make a bad decision. Um, but all I can do is just learn from my mistakes and try to grow forward, And that's just what I think we all do that. And some people, man, they feel like they're lost hope, like Rick. I would talk to Rick about God, and at first, I mean, honestly, I think at first Rick thought he wasn't really good enough to give his life to God because he felt like some of the things he did in his life were too bad. And I told him that's not the case. I don't care what you've done, man. That's not how God views you. When you ask God for forgiveness, and I don't care what you did, uh, He is going to wash those sins away. And, I understand. I understand going, man, like, I don't really know how God could forgive me of this and this. These were pretty bad things. Well, you got to ask yourself if that's you listening or whatever. Is there something so bad you did that God dying on the cross, getting most of the skin ripped off his body, barely breathing, grasping for air, is that not good enough to wash your sins away, man? Like he's flesh. He had half of it ripped off his body and he had to shed his blood. Back in the Bible days, like for a sacrifice, there had to be shed blood. A lot of time they did animals and stuff. They for a sacrifice there had to be shed blood, so they would sacrifice animals a lot of time. The only sacrifice good enough that would wash our sins away would be the blood of the one Son of God that's never sinned, and he has to be crucified, and his blood has to be shed, so we have a chance at life because our sins will be forgiven. And I mean, imagine, if there's a dad maybe on here watching or whatever, I don't know, can you watch your son get torn apart, ripped apart, and nailed to a cross? And then once he is hanging on the cross, God the Father had to turn and turn his he had to turn away from that sin that Jesus was crying out. He's crying out, God, he's crying out to his father, and he had to have nothing to do with that sin, so he had to turn away from that. How could Man, I'm a dad, I don't know how he could do that, but it wasn't he was turning his back away from his son, he was turning his back away from sin, and he died for our sins, so now we all literally, Jesus was the sacrifice that gives us hope, that gives us forgiveness, so all we have to do is ask for forgiveness. I mean, what's greater than that? And all we have to do is just accept it. It's like people don't believe it because it's like so easy. All I have to do is accept it. And this, oh man, like it's like saying something. If you say something and mean it, then that's worth a lot. So if you say, God, I want you in my heart, and I will ask you, I believe that you're the Son of God. I believe you died for my sins, and I want you Lord of my life because I need you. If you do that, he's in your heart. You ask him into your heart, you're saved, man. Like that's it. Yeah, that's it. There's no lightning bolts coming down, man. There's no, but the sense of relief that you feel knowing that I actually took all of this stuff and I gave it to God and He took it. That's relief. So like for Rick, he was very feeling not very comfortable like through his cancer and obviously, but and I don't mean the cancer part, I mean mentally he was not feeling good. And he didn't know like how's this going to go for me. And we set an appointment up, like I've talked on other podcasts and we went and talked to a friend of mine that was a pastor, and I watched Rick give his life to God. And before we went in there, he was really kind of scared of dying. He didn't know what was going to happen to him. and he was scared. But when he did what I just talked about and realized what giving your life to God is, and asked God to come into his life and ask for forgiveness for the things he's done in the past, when we walked out of there, he's like, man, I just feel like a whole weight is lifted off me. And then he died like shortly after that. But you could tell that the weight was lifted. He wasn't scared of really dying anymore, you know? I got I got a niece right now. Um, she's young 20-year-old, and she has cancer. She's been battling for several years, last couple of years, and they don't think she has a lot of time left. She's a born again Christian, and she's doing very well, like spiritually, and she's not worried about what's going to happen to her. She honestly is taking it so good, um, but she's just, she's been through a lot. This last, I don't know, even this last year, she's just been through a lot. Um, but her faith is so strong, man. Like, I mean, there's times when she goes and gets a checkup, and her tumors are growing, and she's like, "Wow, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool because when God does the miracles He wants in my life, people are just going to be in that much more awe." I mean, that's what she says. That literally right after coming out of the hospital, and whatever. I mean, she knows God's going to take care of her, and without a doubt. And sometimes what we see the outside, we see the world, and we see what faith comes in. It's like there's more than what's to the eye. If we could only see right now, say Rick is in heaven and he is in no pain. He's literally, if we could see him in heaven, like right now, you could just look and see him, and this guy is having the best time of his life in this amazing place. Like right now, if you could just look and see him, it's like awesome there. And like we would maybe look at the earthly things differently, like we get so tied up into what's of this world when, I mean, I have a feeling that once we die, we're going to actually really start living for the people that, you know, gave their life to God. Your life is going to go to a whole nother new level of really living. And you're not going to look back at this place. Um, so I think is, um, seeing things that your mind actually can't see right now. Don't get your mind set on what's right in front of you, because there's so much more than what's right in front of you, and it's hard to grow that way if you can only see what's right in front of you, right? So you got to look past that. You got to look for. I mean, I've trained a lot of people that I've got close to. Another a guy and gal couple that are older couple, not old, but older than me. Uh, I trained them since I started Big Iron Gym, and the husband, he got cancer. I trained him for like, I don't know, 6, 7 years. He ended up passing away. Um, and I still train his wife today. She's like my mom. Like she's like my gym mom. Now she works at the gym. She runs the front desk, the sweetest lady you'll ever meet in your life, and she just has the sweetest spirit about her. But I've had so many people come and go in my life, and even through whatever you want to call death, you can call it dying, or you can call it, I believe, going to heaven, and they're living such a better life. The thing that a lot of people think nowadays, like, well, why do all these bad things happen to people that are Christians then, or why do these bad things happen to these kids, or why do these bad things? I mean, we just live in a place where we have free will, and that's the way we wanted it. Like, we didn't want to be robots. We wanted to be able to make decisions, and because we get free will to make our own decisions, there's a lot of bad things that are going to happen because not everybody is going to choose the same decisions. So, like, things can happen that we really have no control over. because people make different decisions, and there's a lot of bad things that happen because of it. But we still wanted the same decision is to be able to have free will. So you're going to have to deal with a lot of different things just alone that we all wanted to have free will, right? And so I don't know why certain people get sicknesses and this and that. I don't know why. Maybe someday when we get to heaven, we'll know more. But I think things develop and things happen because of basically sin, and who knows, probably other reasons too. But I mean, God didn't cause this. God gave us free will, and that's what we wanted. And because of that, man, this all kinds of different things happen. That's the way I view it anyway. I don't think God's not going to cause anything bad to happen to somebody. He's not the one that personally causes that. But he did allow us to have free will. He did allow people to make a decision, and some people's decision is going to affect us. It's going to affect you. It's going to affect Christians. It's going to affect not Christians. It's going to affect everybody. And life happens. Like life happens, man. People get in car wrecks. People get abused. People get abducted. People get to meet God. I mean, there's all good and bad both get to happen. But it's all, we all wanted free will and we got it. So good and bad, all things are going to happen to all of us. I mean, if, as a Christian, you think I don't ever have anything that goes crazy in my life? I mean, I always have crazy stuff going on. But I don't ever say, well, this is God's fault. No, man, like this is the life I live in. But I am thankful that I do have free will. But my choice and what I choose is to serve God through anything, good things and bad things. Because if you're going through something bad, you can do it without God if you want. Do it if you want. It's a lot better going through hard times with Him than it is without Him. And, God doesn't need us. We need Him. He'll be fine without us. He'll be fine. They're not going to happen to Him. He's fine without us. But you go through life and go through trials and tribulations of your own. You do it with God. And it's way better to go through things with God. But you have to know God. You have to know God's word, His promises, man. Like who He says you are. There's a song, and it always says, I am who God says I am. I'm a child of God. And I like that song because I am who God says I am. I'm not who anybody else says I am. I'm only who God says I am. But a lot of times the devil wants to get in your head and he wants to say, hey man, look at all these things you screwed up on, man. It'd just be easier just end it, man. Just end it, move on. You don't need to feel this pain no more, man. You don't need to deal with all this suffering. I had one of my best friends. Actually, the last 2 years, I had two friends commit suicide, and they did it in their garage in their car. And in just the last couple of years, two of my friends did that. I mean, it'd be nice, man, like to be able to, we all go through pain. It's okay to go through pain, like people that watch this too. I'm not just, I'm talking to everybody. Like we all go through pain. I go through pain. But man, you gotta have somebody to reach out to, man. Like, don't listen to the lies of the devil, man, because he does want you to end your life. Because he doesn't want any good people here. He wants you to listen to his voice. He don't want you to listen to God. And when God tells me I am who He says I am, that's what I think about. That serious. Like God says I'm a child of God. And the only way you know who you are is read the Bible. Who am I? What does God say you are? Because what God says you are, that's what you are. You're not who other people say you are. You're not probably even who you tell yourself you are. You are who God says you are. But you need to know that. Otherwise, where's your strength at? How are you supposed to get through all these trials if you don't know who God says you are and who you are? So, like that for me, a lot of times, man, even when I feel like crap, I feel like a failure. There's times I feel like I screwed up. I gotta go back and I gotta go, man, God, like I gotta listen to your voice, not the voices in my head, man. I gotta listen to your voice because I am who you say I am. You know, it's easy to listen to the other voice because, man, sometimes he's attacking people's minds all day long, trying to get you to think different. That's what his whole plan is: this attack your mind, and that's where he starts. Times that you don't even know he's doing it, he's doing it. Sorry, man, I'm all over. I'm all over the place.
No, that's perfect, man. you know, didn't expect all that, but
Me,
that's the best. It's better than what I could expect, really.
you know,
Um,
I just like
well,
talking about real stuff, man. And
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
watching, dude. I don't care who's watching if they want to watch or whatever. But with me, I'm gonna tell you, you're gonna know who I am. You don't have to guess, man. Like I'm gonna be real, and I think that's what people want these days. They want to hear from real people, man. I can sit here and tell you about squatting 900 and 1,000 and whatever. Who gives a crap? I mean, honestly, to me, it doesn't mean a whole lot. Honestly, man. I mean, when you all these numbers that we all lift, yeah, man, there's some great numbers, some great fun times with it. But you know what I remember now? I'm 46 years old. I remember who I did it with, the times we had together, and like the valuable things that I wish I could go back. I don't care about going back and squatting 1,060. I don't care about that. I care about going and spending time with the people I did it with. That's what means the most. It's not the numbers. Okay, how did it feel to lift that number? Well, just like it did the number before that and before that. I mean, right? Who cares? Like people get caught up into these numbers and these people that lift it's great accomplishments. It's great. But man, you're going to be older someday and you're going to go, what did you take away from that? You're going to go talk about, hey, when I was 30 years old, I squatted this. How's that going to feel in your heart? You ain't going to care. You right? But like if I could tell you, man, I had this great time with these people, man, and we went all over the world. We did these trips. I mean, most of the time it was in the gym, and I spent a lot of time in the gym, and I got to like talk to my best friends about really important things. I got to goof around with them. I talked about really dumb things with them too. But we just lived life together and just made memories and like I miss those times, you know. But now we gotta do that for other people now. We gotta move forward. And like I'm in different shoes now. So like I'm trying to do that with other people. So they have those special moments. They have those times. Yeah, I push people hard. I am crazy about training. And I don't sugarcoat that either. I go hard. But I want them to achieve things that they can't see that they can do themselves. But at the big picture, though, the big picture is that they learn a lot of things through the training. That things are hard, you can overcome them. It's better to have Christ on your side than without him. Just the importance of life lessons to get these numbers. It's not the numbers, it's learning the lessons. And it means more.
yeah, man. No, and just one of the things that popped in my head when you were talking about free will and everything. That was one of the things that got me when I understood the story about how God gave us free will, because it says He created everything perfectly in the garden. And I realized that giving us free will was perfect. Like that was part of perfection. And then the way that then we chose to sin, which separated us from God, and that's where death comes from, and all these things. And so perfection kind of like opened the door to that. But then He saved us through Jesus dying for our sins to reconcile that. And I just thought, wow, that's such an amazing, beautiful story. And when God condemns us, when we are condemned, it's actually not that He wants to condemn us, but it's His perfect character, kind of, which goes hand in hand, kind of with the things you were talking about yourself. I was like, man, you have like such a crazy character, like how you say like you can't miss a workout, and you made your wife drive you when you're sick, and just the type of person you are. That's character. You were describing character, and it's God's perfect character. That made me look at it differently. Like God doesn't want to like throw us into hell, but His perfect character is like if you reject Him, He will throw you into hell, which is a crazy thing. I mean, like you're talking about something real. It's like getting cast into eternal hellfire. That's
Yeah.
like the realest thing you could ever. I can't even fathom it. I don't think anybody can fathom it. I think it's not even real to people because it's such a unimaginable thing, that people don't even want to think about it. They don't even want to go there in their minds. But it's His perfect character that does it. It's not, God's will. Like you said, it's God's will for everybody to repent and to come to Him. Um, I want to hear some of these stories of these people on your journey. But I want to share this. This is another thing that came to my mind because you were saying it doesn't matter the weights that you lifted, but this is something that could maybe give more meaning even to your gym, to the name of your gym, to your life, even just being a power lifter. And the fact that you lifted, some of the heaviest weights of anybody in history. Um, I have a buddy. His name's Scotty Stockman. Anybody could look this guy up. He's going to be like a UFC champion or something. He's a really great fighter, up and coming guy, phenomenal, and he I know him because we met at the gym. Me and this other fighter. So me and this other fighter, after we would train, we would go out to his truck and we would talk about God. We would just go out in the truck and we'd be out there talking about God. And getting in trouble by our wives. Like, what are you guys doing? And so, but we would always talk about God. Well, Scotty one day like came out and he's like, "What are you guys doing?" And we're like, dude, go away. You don't want to know what we're doing. You know what I mean? Like, get out of here. And he's like, no, come on, like, what are you guys doing? And we're like, we're talking about God, man. This is what we do. And he's like, I want to talk about God too. And so we're like, all right, we don't know if you're like serious about this though, like we are. So, but we'll give you a chance. So we let him in, and we became really tight. All three of us are very close. Scotty's a maniac. He's probably running in a mountain right now or something out in the wilderness. Uh, but we always connect to talk about God, like when stuff gets real. Before his fights, he comes over to my house and we pray, always. This is just what we do, and I won't even talk to him or see him or nothing, but he'll show up. Hey, man, it's time to fight. Can I come over? Come over, man. Uh, and so I met his wife a couple times, who was his fiance at the time. And some of the stuff that I would say, she just really liked. And so when it came time for them to get married, she asked Scotty, she said, "Hey, could you get him to marry us?" And so my buddy Scotty, he goes, "Hey, man, Tanya wants you to marry us." And I was like, "Me? Like, you want me to marry you guys?" And couldn't believe that, but I was like, wow, I felt really honored, really. I was like, wow, this is something that means a lot to me. And yeah, I would be honored to do it. So I'll do it. And so I had to figure that out. I had to go get ordained or whatever. And I had to do a study on what I was going to say. Cause they said, look, we like the stuff you say to us in private. We want you to say those things at the wedding. The way that you talk to us, we want you to say those things at the wedding. And so I always kind of spoke to Scotty from a perspective of what the Bible says for a man to do, because that was part of my journey. That's my life, and I took it very seriously. Like, okay, what does God say for a husband to do? Love your wife. That's it. Thankfully, you go to First Corinthians chapter 13, it tells you what that means, right? So you look there, be patient, be kind, right? And you got to look down the checklist. Am I doing this? Am I doing this? You have a gauge or whatever, you have a checklist to make sure you're doing what God commanded you to do. So I had that down. I had what I was going to tell Scotty in the wedding down, but I didn't know what's the wife do really. I didn't know that part because that's not my part in living my life. So I was like, okay, well, I have to say what she needs to do too. So I need to do research on that. So I go looking it up. It says, wives, respect your husbands. So I was like, okay, all right, I gotta say that. And I go, okay, is there a definition in the Bible for respect? Is that there? Go looking. There's no definition for respect, right? There's all this stuff for love, but you go look up respect and there's nothing. So I was like, man, I gotta know what this means because I want to say this. Uh, I want this to be very serious, and I want to tell these guys, hey, because I told them, I said, if you guys aren't taking this serious with God, I don't want to do your wedding. Like I'm serious about this because I ain't going to heaven and have God say, why did you do this wedding? You know what I mean? You shouldn't have done it. And so they were like, hey, we're serious, we're doing this, you know, we're divorce isn't an option, all the things, okay. So I look into it and I find out that in Hebrew, in the Hebrew language, the word respect means weight. So it means heaviness. It means the opposite of light. It means heavy. So extremely heavy is what respect means. And so the wife is to respect her husband. So when he says something, that should be considered extremely heavily, taken extremely seriously. And it also says, like, it has a picture that the husband's to love the wife like Christ loved the church. So the husband represents Jesus in the relationship, the wife represents the church. And that made me think for my life too. I said, that's how I'm supposed to take God's word very heavily. Like, it gave me such direction in my life where I was like, okay, I'm supposed to read the word of God and consider that like heavily. And for me, one of the cool things is I thought to myself, like, the instruction of God or the command of God, it's like Jesus was the only one that could pick up that weight. He's the only one that could do it. You know, it's like a weight that nobody could lift, but Jesus could lift it. And I just thought that was cool. And for me, it was really cool just being a weightlifter to learn that. I was like, wow, that's so tied to my life and that's so cool. And so I just wanted to share that with you because, you know, that's obviously your thing, heavy weights. You know, even though you said it doesn't mean anything, it could have maybe a little more meaning there. Um, you know, and definitely, I think those weights, you know, they could have killed you, man. I mean, you're lifting weights that could kill somebody. So, you know, that I'm interested in that too, like what how your faith played a role in that and what that was like, just that experience because, you know, I don't know, it had to be adrenaline rush, man. It had to be intense too. Like, I'm interested even what the thoughts were in your head. You brought up Mike Tyson, you know, and Mike Tyson, one of the things about him, you know, his son is very gifted physically too. Like, he's really explosive and everything. But he said, my son could never be a fighter like me because his dad was like a pimp or something, and his mom was a prostitute, and he grew up like in this crazy childhood. And he's like, the things I felt in my heart and the things I went through, my son, he just ain't gonna have that. And so I'm interested too, like for yourself, like did you have a crazy childhood that made you the way that you are too, you know, because there's some of the stuff you're talking about, I'm like, man, I don't know if somebody could make themselves have that. I don't know if it could be developed to be like what you are. So anyways, I just wanted to share that, and if you could just take it and run from there.
I mean, childhood. I mean, it was good. It was good childhood. Um, you know, my dad was hard on me. He traveled a lot, so he was gone most of the week. And then, you know, I was the oldest boy. I got a younger brother, but my dad would kind of like, expected me to have a certain amount of things done during the week. So when he came home, these chores and these things were done. Even being young. But my dad grew up on a farm. Like with 7 brothers. I mean, like this is the way. That's what a lot of back then. A lot of families were big, and they needed to have these kids in big families because they lived on farms, and they needed, you know, that was our help. So like my dad raised me in the way he knew how to do it. Being a parent myself, you realize, you you're learning a lot. Even when you're a parent, you're still learning. There's no perfect parent. There's no book to tell you how to be a perfect parent. Like you're always trying to be a better parent. And so, uh, was there times like, yeah, we didn't have probably the best relationship. Um, we butted heads a lot. We're both stubborn. Um, it probably drove him crazy that I was so stubborn, and I'm very stubborn. Like I'm really stubborn, man. Like if you tell It's something. If it's in my head, I don't really care who says it or does whatever. If it's in my head, I'm going to do something. I'm doing it, no matter what the consequences are. You could tell me a million times something. I don't care. When my mind's made up, man, no one can talk me out of something if I make my mind up. And so I probably drove him crazy. So I get it, you know. But he was, you know, uh, he didn't want no lazy kid, you know. And I was hard headed, so he knew. He made it to where it was tough. I was emotional. I was really emotional. Like things hurt me pretty easy. The way you would, I mean, honestly, you could do something physically, but like how you talk to me and your tone and like how you treat me is way worse for me than anything else. You know, so like how you come at me could make me really not like you. You know, I mean, like I could hear my dad's boots coming down the stairs every morning, and I'd wake up just because I could hear his boots, coming down the stairs before he even would open the door up. And it's like, like who wants to be woke up and be like, all right, damn it, it's time to get up and get the hell up. Let's go. We got shit to do. Like, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to be woke up like that. I'm pissed off now, like immediately pissed. But my dad will kick my ass. So what are you gonna do? You can't do anything. You kill you, you know. And he's always telling you, like you're never gonna be able to whip your old man, no matter what. You're never gonna be able to. It's like installed in your head, you know. And so it's like, you can't do anything about it. And like he had a short temper. I had a short temper growing up, but he had a real short temper. So it didn't matter. Like I was the middle child, so like, I have an older sister, younger brother. So a lot of times, my sister, it's he ain't gonna yell at her like that. And first thing is it's Shawn, you're doing it. Whatever it is, you're in trouble. You're the one doing yeah. And it's just, but it's common, it's not a big deal. It's just, but the way you approach me is huge, man. Like huge how people approach me, the words and the tone of how you do it. For me, that's always been big, but it started from my dad coming at me with like, maybe not the right tone and that stuff. So, like I got to really think about that when I'm talking to my kids, like it'd be real easy to slip and be very short tempered and, quick to anger and all these things, but they're little. I got to understand they're kids, like you can't talk to a kid like a grown man that should already know certain things, and he probably, but it's not his fault because that's how he grew up. I mean, my grandpa was like that to my uncles, all of them, I mean, it was, it's just what they know, so, I watched that movie, The Shack. There's a part in that movie, and it's like, if you could actually see your parent that maybe you had, like me and my dad, we didn't have a good, we didn't have a good relationship growing up. And then when I had, I mean, I hated him honestly for a long time. I did, just hated him, man. I hated everything. I hated
Did
hearing
your
his voice.
dad? Did your dad drink?
No, I mean
He
he
didn't.
drank, but it wasn't the drinking.
Okay.
He drank, he had drinks, but he didn't really drink around us a lot or anything like
He
that.
wasn't like a drunk,
No, he was not a drunk at all. Not a drunk at all.
not a
He just
drug addict, nothing like
strong.
that.
No, he had a strong mindset, like 100% strong mindset. And when he wanted something done or whatever, he was just pretty harsh about how it's everything. Like so, and for me being I was sensitive, and you're talking to me like I'm a piece of shit. You're telling me I'm never going to be able to do things, and that's the tone I heard. Maybe that's not what he was saying, but that's the tone I heard. For me, that doesn't go good for me, and so like we just and he's traveled. He's gone a lot most of the time, So like we didn't do things. We didn't hang out. We didn't go do stuff together like as a kid. We didn't do that, you know. And he comes home. And he's like, "Hey, this and this ain't good enough. You didn't do this right. You didn't do that right. And why didn't you do this better? If you're gonna do it, damn it, do it right, or don't fucking do it at all." That's what I heard. So I'm thinking, wow, man, I just did this all day. All my other kids, my buddies, they're all going swimming, doing this cool shit, and you're dragging like mow a couple acres with the 21-inch mower, like But it's but that's what he knew. So there's nothing wrong with that because that's how he got grown up. So but there's a lot of good things that came out of it. I mean, like I was never afraid to like work, obviously, and like now having a gym and put in whatever hours are needed. I expect that. Like I expect it, man. I'll do any job. I don't care. I'll do anything to just to be successful and work hard. So that taught me to work hard and have a hard work ethic and same thing with never complain. Like he hated complaining. I I can't stand complaining in my own voice. And if somebody's in the gym complaining, I can't do this or that. Oh man, you don't say that. Like I couldn't say that growing up. Like that's not acceptable. Like what do you mean? Like so those are annoying things to me to still like. Yes, but I mean, there was a lot of great things that come out of it. A lot of good skills that help people be successful. And now you just getting older, you find the balance of everything, and you're trying to find that balance. The right amount of things, the right way to word things. It's just you put it all together. And that's what I guess I'm trying to do as a husband, as a father. You're trying to, just being, read my devotional. I'm listening to, learning and having a better relationship with God, because that's who you really want to mimic is a father that's balanced. Um, I don't even know how what we even started talking about here, how this even
Well,
got.
it was just I brought up Mike Tyson and his
Oh yeah,
childhood
so yeah,
influencing him.
like yeah, just taught me hard work ethic. I think is to not do shit half ass. And he would always tell me the one thing that you got that no one can take away from you is like my last name. And you need to make that worth, uh, have a good reputation. You don't give our name a bad name, you know. And I feel like that goes back. You think generations of all of my, grandpa and great grandpa, people that work hard. Like, do I want to be the one to like give it a different name, a lazy name? To me, that meant something. I remember. I mean, obviously, I remember that now. Still, like that means something to me. Like, I don't give a shit, man. I'm gonna do anything. I'll go hard. I'll do anything, whatever, man. If I die that way, fine with me. But I'm not gonna be the one that screwed that up. And I don't know. I just had to learn the hard way on most everything anyway, because I'm probably stubborn. So like I didn't listen to people that maybe would try and give me a, hey man, you might want to do this. Whatever, man. I'm doing it for sure. Like I learned everything the hard way. And so, you learn hard lessons that way. But you also learn from them. And so
It was funny on the I laughed, man, because I thought it was so cool actually on the Dave Tate podcast that you did. Dave asks you, he goes, so how do you deal with it when people question what you're telling them to do in the gym? How do you address that? And you thought about it, and you're all, that doesn't happen. And I just thought, I
like
was like, wow, that's amazing, because just the type of person that you are, it's like people don't question because they're like, okay, we know this guy takes everything dead serious, so he knows what he's talking about. Like people could just, they don't even question you. I was like, wow, that's amazing.
well, I mean, like I'm not gonna tell somebody, they know me too. They know I'm not gonna tell you something that I want good for you. I want the best for you. I'm not gonna tell you anything that I wouldn't do myself. So like I'm only gonna tell you what I would tell myself to do. So if you ask me, I'm gonna tell you, and that is the answer. That's just the answer. I don't know. I don't have nothing up my sleeve. It's just you ask, here it is. That's it. And they know. I mean, most people, they've obviously been, if I'm training them, they've been around me enough. They know, like, he ain't gonna have me do something that I would ever hurt somebody, or, I mean, I don't care who it is, man. Like, I can't help but tell you the right stuff to do. Even when I would tell my competition or something that they're doing wrong. Like, I mean, because I thought deep into a lot of things. Like I'm thinking to myself, well, how am I supposed to know if I'm really better than these guys if they don't have the same stuff I have? Maybe they're better than me, but they don't have the same gear or the same whatever. So I want to make sure they got apples to apples, and then I win. Because like if I'm talking to my buddies like Brian Carroll or whoever, that I compete against or whatever, I'm not going to tell them like, I'm not going to do no head games, no nothing. I want the best for them, man. But, because I want to know that I'm the best because like I was stronger or whatever, like I didn't want to know cut corners or whatever, like you want to know like when you're the best lifter, you won that day, you want to know you legitimately won because you put the effort in, you put the work in, and you won, right? You don't want to be like, well, man, if he would have known what I would know, man, he would have killed me. I wouldn't feel good about that. Like I'd feel like I'm a piece of shit. Honestly, I'm like I can't win. I'm not a winner. Like I want you to have the same stuff I got, and then I want to beat you, and that's what I want. And then I can have a clear mind knowing that no, I beat that dude. Like.
That's interesting to hear that because a lot of the West Side guys said that they would hope that their their competition would get hurt or something. Like they were like, man, if I could win like that, that's great.
Well, funny. Before you called my daughter, I'm at the gym right now. My daughter asked me. She came in and she goes, "Dad, well, what was the hardest meet or whatever you ever did, or the hardest training cycle or something?" She asked me, and I said, "Well, one that I stood out a little bit is like I tore my obliques on one of my side a couple weeks before the meet, so it like it ripped and like my whole side's black and blue and like all those muscles kind of tore. So it was like to like go up and down, like to move, like to push backwards or to balance. It just man, dude, it hurt so bad. But this was like 2 weeks before the first pro am that I ever did. And there's not a time I thought, well, I'm not going to be able to do the meet. She was asking me about this. I go, no, I'm doing the meet. When I sign up for something, unless I'm dead, I'm doing it. And so like, so I go, well, I did kind of cheat. I never said this before, I don't think. But I go, I did kind of cheat because I'm doing this meet and I'm winning. In my brain, I don't know. I'm going to find a way to win. That's half of life is finding a way to win, right? Find a way to be successful. There's roadblocks that are going to get in your way. And I tell my guys this all the time. You got to train around injuries. You don't just quit. You train around them, right? Because we're all going to be kind of hurt, right? So I'm like, I tore these all my whole sides, all black and blue, man. It's tore, no bleed. So I actually made um kind of like a girdle like thing, like your briefs that would go up high, right? And took some velcroed onto them and took the straps like a bench shirt. And I took that and velcroed my whole core really tight. I tried doing a long knee wrap around my core that, and that kind of helped. But man, this that like that like a several ply like squat brace, but then you can tighten it around my core. I actually did that first pro am and I just put my shirt over top of it, but I actually had that going on and I ended up winning that pro am. And honestly, I had that. That's what I did because I made my obliques were torn. I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this. So I had to really stay perfectly straight up and down to squat because if I like would have leaned over a little bit, it takes too much pressure on your obliques, and I couldn't handle it. So it forced me to just really straight up and down and just push my knees out hard. So I was literally coming like straight down and straight back up, because I couldn't afford to like push into it and lean.
Yeah.
But that's what I told her when she came in here and asked me that question. But B, you just got to do whatever it takes, man. Like I don't care, whatever, cheating or whatever. I felt like I was at a disadvantage for having that happen to me. So whatever I got to do, man, I'm going to win, right?
Yeah.
Rick always said, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
Yeah.
And if you won cheating, you won twice.
Well, it's interesting that you actually won doing that because how many people would have just quit or pulled out?
Yeah, but that's what I mean. It's like, how bad do you want it? Like, there's no option. I did my first bodybuilding show. I tore my quad, and I tore my sartorius off, and it was a week of the show. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me! Like my legs swelled up, the whole thing was black and blue. And here I just dieted the longest I ever did because my first show, so I was, kind of I never got that lean before ever powerlifting because you want to hold water and. So I did that whole prep, and the week before, I ripped my sartorius, and I'm like, "You got to be kidding me! Here's my luck again." But I'm like, I don't know. Like I remember, I was training. My trainer and my coach was Todd Smith, and awesome guy, um, Mr. Natural Olympia, just man, universe, awesome guy. Um, and he's like, "Well, man, what are you gonna do?" And I remember I was like, "Well, let me call you back." I got in the shower, took a shower. I'm standing in the shower, and I'm like, "Well, what am I gonna do?" And I remember saying to myself, "Well, who are you?" See, these battles I'm telling you that I have in my head. I'm like, "Well, what am I gonna do?" I'm thinking. Part of my brain goes, "Well, who are you? You quitter?" And I'm like, "Fuck no, I'm no quitter." And I'm like, "I guess I'm getting up there." I'm like, "You can stand up. If you can stand up, you should be up there." And then something said to me like, man, like, what do you want to be remembered for? I mean, is it you want to be remembered for winning, or do you want to remember for like when you say you're going to do something, you do it? And I'm like, this is my conversation I'm having with myself, and I'm like, I'm doing it no matter what, man, because no matter what, man, if I get up there and I do what I said I'm going to do, what I really want people to know me for is if Shawn says he's going to do something, man, he's going to do it. And so, like, I called Todd back and I was like, hey, I'm doing that show no matter what, man. As long as I can stand up, I'm doing the show. So that's it. So I ended up doing the show, and I ended up winning my weight class, and it was light heavy weight class. And, which, I mean, who cares about that? But, like, you did it. Like, I just got back from the Olympia this last weekend.
Yeah.
And, obviously, Nick Walker tore his hamstring, which was terrible, man. That sucks.
Yeah.
And looked terrible. In my head, I was thinking, what would have happened if Nick Walker decided to get on that stage and stand up and do that show? I think that guy would have won the whole place over. Not because of the placing he was going to place, but because people came from all over the world to see that guy. And if he got up there, that guy would probably have more standing ovation and so much credit for just getting up there for those people than the guy that won the thing. I believe that. But that's the kind of I want to be known for, like, I don't give a shit, man. Unless my heart stops, I'm doing what I say I'm doing. And so, like, that's how it meant to me. But it's lessons learned, and you look at things differently in different ages. You look at things differently, and you know people did make decisions and I'm not saying it's wrong, for every decision's different and every injury is different too. So, like, I'm not saying, like, I don't know all the details of his injury and stuff, but I just think it would have been really cool if he would have went up there and be like, you know what, man, I can stand up and I'm doing this and I don't give a shit. Like, dude, I would have been like, hell yeah, that's my dude, like that right there.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like
I
that
mean,
stuff, man.
pulling out he lost his chance to win. I do know that that's like hearing you talk is kind of like that blood and guts mentality. Dorian Yates, he said that's what happened to him. Is he had the same thing happen, right? He tore two muscles, I think, one different competitions, but I know he like tore his bicep or something, and then he just said to himself, "Well, if I pull out, I'm definitely not going to win. So I'm just
Yeah,
going to do it,
yeah,
and then I have a chance still, at least."
yep,
Kind of the same mentality you're talking about, like,
yeah. And I don't know the depth of his injury. It looked bad. I mean, it looked terrible. But man, if he could stand up and get up there, I just thought that would have been the coolest thing ever. And that he would have just won over everyone by doing that. Like, that's how that dude's rolling. I mean, I'm at the Olympia last week, and I'm telling you right now, Ronnie Coleman is the man. That guy has had more surgeries, more injuries, and you know why he's the man? Because he loves the sport. That guy was there every day, all day long. And that line that he had, everybody wanted to see him, was hours long, and people stood in it. There's no lion anywhere else like that guy's. That guy, everybody wanted to see. So that tells you something about that person. That person, man, he's earned so much respect in people That's why that guy is the man, because he earned it and he loves it and he's doing it for the right reason. And sometimes people got to look outside of first, second, and third place. They got to go, who are you? What's your last name? How you gonna promote that, man? How do you want people to know you? How do they? What do you want to be remembered when you're not here no more? I don't really care about a first place. I want people to know that I'm real and I don't quit. I don't care about the placing. Like that doesn't mean he's real. He don't quit. I mean, what you see is what you get. I'm not a perfect person. I just try hard and I'm gonna go down trying hard. That's it. Simple.
It's interesting that you have that mindset and you also won all the time. Like you say, you're like what you're saying is like I don't care how I place, but you placed first probably almost all of your competitions. I imagine from
I mean,
it sounds like you could have beat all the weight divisions above you.
well, I mean, like I cared about winning. Like I don't like losing. Maybe I thought about more about losing than winning. Like I ain't losing. I'm not losing. I'm winning. But um, I do care about it because I'm a competitor. But when I say I don't care about it, I mean like on the priority list, it's not up here. Compared to those other things, they're like down here. Like who I am I a quitter? Am I a go hard? Do I give up? I mean, I'm like, I don't quit for nothing. Like those things are more important than my placings and how I win. Winning's important because like if I know if I do the things that I'm supposed to do, I should be winning. Like I should expect to do this because I'm doing these things. So that should come. But I didn't focus on I want to get first and second. I didn't focus on that. I focused on you got to do the things that it takes. And that's just going to be who you are. And then you're going to be a winner because of that.
Yeah, I really loved that story that you shared about the deadlifts because I could feel it. I could feel like I was like, oh man, I know exactly what you're talking about because you said you helped out with the youth group, right?
Yeah.
And so you couldn't train with your team. You couldn't train at your regular hour. You had to train late at night. And you said, did you have to do it like with a not a good bar or something too?
Yeah, just like a regular stiff, crappy bar at any normal gym because I just had to go to my gym here in town that at that time, I mean, it's just a regular health club gym. It's not like a real gym gym. This was at a health club. I wouldn't even call it a gym. Um, they didn't have the real equipment, like powerlifting equipment, weightlifting equipment. No one's lifting heavy. You'd be lucky to see somebody put 315 on a bar in a normal place. You know what I mean? So like, that's where I had to train. So they were just crap bars. But whatever, it doesn't matter. Hey, it's another excuse for whatever, right? Doesn't matter. You should be able to pull it on every bar. That's what goes on in my head. Like right now, I'm thinking, it doesn't matter what bar. You should be able to pull it on any bar. Like my guys, they'll tell you this. They're like, oh, the squat bar. Oh, I'll come over. They squat. They stop talking. They'll be like, don't even talk that shit because he'll rip your ass. I'd be like, I don't care what freaking bar it is. I don't give a shit what bar's on there. You should be able to squat this on any damn bar. It shouldn't matter. It's all in your head. You got to be able to be ready for anything. It's competition. I mean, what do you think competition is? It's not perfect scenarios. It's never perfect scenarios. It's all terrible scenarios. And you got to make the best out of those. I remember one time doing, I never did that bench for reps thing, John Inzer, and they started doing that bench for reps at the Olympia and all these different um, fitness expos and all that. And I'd never done one. And the first one I was going to do is the Olympia, and a lot of great lifters, there. And I remember like Jesse Kellum, Coker, uh, and me. I think we all tied because you did like 500 for reps, you did 600, 500, or you did 700, 600, 500. You started heavier and we went lighter. So when we got to like 500 or something, I think we all like tied. Well, first of all, when we got there, we were trying to figure out the order of, all right, who's going first, second, and this and that. Well, I had the biggest one rep max at that time. So like Frankel's got to go first, man. He's got the biggest bench. He's going first. well, these guys have already did this competition at like the Texas or the Fit Expo, like the Scott Mendelson put on. So they kind of done this before. And I'm like, I don't know what to expect, you know? And so I'm like, well, you guys at least done this before. I'm thinking in my head, but they're like, hey, you know, you start. You got the biggest one and biggest 1 rep max, and I'm not gonna complain because this is what I say. I don't want no complaining. I hate complaining, right? So when they said you got to go first, I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna find a way to make it. I don't even know how I'm gonna do it because obviously you'd want somebody else to go first, so you know what to beat, right? But since they said we want you to go first, I'm like, all right. In my head, I'm thinking I got to find a way to find an advantage over this. I got to use this for an advantage somehow. I'm not sure right now how that's going to be, but I'm going to find a way to make this an advantage for me. So there's a line, you know, that we'd all go through the order, right? So we did the 700 to 600, and we're at the 500, and like me, Kellum, and Coker all tied at 500 for whatever the amount of reps was. We all tied. But see, I went first, and they were the last ones to go. So they're like, we got to do a tiebreaker round. I go, I'm ready right now. Let's go right now because they're gonna have to go right after me, and they just went, so they're gonna be tired. So I go, all right, I'm ready. Hold the bar. I'm ready to do it right now. And so like I forced it to go a little faster because I just got rest, and they just got done, so they're tired. So they went out and they weren't able to do as many reps. So I ended up winning, but you just got to find a way to make it a positive or a way to win, even off of a scenario where, you know, it might not have been the best, you know?
Yeah, you flipped it on them. It was a
Yeah.
disadvantage, but you made it an advantage right in that moment.
Yeah. Yep. So that was kind of a funny deal, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Was there anyone when you were competing in powerlifting that pushed you? Like, was there any competition for you? Like, was there somebody that was like a challenge? Or Louis Simmons kind of said that you would beat people in the warm up room by a couple 100 pounds, so it was like not even a competition. So,
I mean, like,
who? How
you
did
know,
that work for you?
well, like, you know, obviously at first I obviously did, you know, I had all these 220-year guys, you know, that were, you know, I was just upcoming, you know, so like there was guys that were heavier and stronger, you know, Matt Kroc and, you know, these other guys that were heavier than me, you know, and they're like 260 pounds cutting to 220. Well, here I am, like, I'm like 200 pounds, you know, and I'm like, what do I do? Do I cut to 98 or do I just try and get stronger and try and get my body weight up, you know? And so a lot of times I would just cut to 98 and barely had to cut, but I wanted to get stronger. So Rick's like, why don't you let's just get you strong and let's gain as much weight as you can. Let your body just grow, and let's just worry about getting strong first, and then we'll worry about what body weight you do it at. So I'm like, all right. So a lot of times, man, I weighed in at the Arnold like 202. You know, and these guys are cutting from 260. You know, and so like, I was close to those guys, but they were beating me. You know, but when I really started getting into my groove, and I was, you know, because for a while I was gone, you know, with the military, and then came back. And when I got back, man, I really started getting that groove going, you know, and um, then I was able to do it and cut to a lighter body weight. So even if I went 198 or 220, either one, yeah, then I was pretty much my openers were going to win, you know. So, but it never starts that way for anybody, man. They don't. No one starts like that, you know. I was trying to be as strong as these guys, you know, Dondell Blue and Croc. And, you know, there's a lot of guys that were strong. So, um, you know, Travis Mash at that time. Yeah, this is, you know, back there, Kellum, you know, those guys were all the big names back then as I was coming up. And then once I got up there, and then it was more like that. Like I surpassed that, and then I just kept going. But the part where I had to keep going once I passed those guys, I was really focusing on, you know, I'd already got the number one, you know, were the, you know, highest totals and numbers in the 198 and 220. And then I just wanted to up them. But then I was kind of thinking of um, the next guy that's going to break my numbers. And I would actually convince myself to be scared of who is to come, even though I haven't seen him. He's in the makes of in the making right now. And I would think about that. I would think, man, the guy that's going to beat all my numbers he's right now. He's training to beat my numbers. He's training to beat my numbers. And there's always somebody that's going to come and beat him. There's always somebody. It's just a matter of time. But they are there. And I just convinced myself that they are going to break my numbers. It's just a matter of time. So you need to get them up as high as you can because someone's going to break them. And then that's what I focused on the last several years. Powerlifting is the person that I don't know that's going to break the numbers. And honestly, I would be happy to help them now. Like there's guys that were really strong. I really would have liked to have seen break my numbers. That Cali, he was really strong. I actually was like wanting to help him with his bench shirt, and then he had problems getting into the States. So I mean, I wanted him to come out. I'd like to work with some guys to break them.
Has
So
anyone ever broken your records? Any of
um,
them?
the total records still are up there. And I don't really know about all the individual lists. I don't even know I don't know. But I did, in the Arnold this last weekend, the 220er, Travis McKinney, man, that kid looked great, man. He totaled high 26. High 26s, at 220. So like he's got a great potential. He's potentially going to take that number out. So he just has to stay healthy. So that'd be pretty cool. 198. I don't know. Cali would have been a great guy to take that out, but I think he injured his tricep or something, so that kind of got in the way. I don't know. Maybe he's doing good, man. I hope he is. Um, but he'd be the one to probably do that. But you
Did,
know,
did you uh, did you know Louis Simmons well?
I mean, obviously, I always talk to him at the powerlifting meets. Louis liked to, how Louis was very he's a really smart guy. So he thought about numbers like man, the guy was smart. He's like talking to a damn computer. And he'd want to tell me like about his methods and why. And man, like he wanted me to try his way. He's like, you gotta, man, he talked like a computer. So like, I'm not gonna remember that shit because, you know, and obviously a lot of that worked because it worked for a lot of those guys. Um, Westside, man, they put out so many strong guys. So obviously it worked. We just did it a different way. Um, I honestly feel like Westside could have even had even better lifters if they wore their gear more. I remember talking to Dave Hoff, and like there was a while, like he squatted 1,000. First teenager to squat 1,000, and then he like forgot how he did it, and he was squatting in the eights again. And I remember being at a pro am, and he's like, "What the heck am I doing wrong? What is going on?" And I'm like, man, you got to start wearing your gear more, man. You don't wear your gear enough. Like, how are you supposed to perform in something it's not like second nature to you? Even if you up your raw strength, it's not like the same when you put the gear on. Like, unless you have the gear 100% mastered, then you're leaving weight on the platform. And then he started wearing his gear all the time. We can see where that got him. And obviously he's figured other things out too with bench shirts and whatnot. But I know he started wearing his gear way more. He changed his time to working out. He's doing it at night, which caused conflict with with Louis. And he did that for so long. And then now look at he's got the night crew. And he's not a West Side no more. But I know that caused conflict with Louis. But you gotta have the gear down or you're leaving numbers on the platform. So
How did you train? Like, what did it look like your training routine?
my training, we benched on Mondays. Wednesdays we deadlifted. Saturdays we squatted. During the week, like Thursdays, I do tricep work, and uh, I do like shoulders on Tuesday. I don't know, dumb stuff. But main thing is it was Monday's bench day, deadlifts Wednesday, and back all my back accessory work. And Saturday we did legs and squatted. And I just mainly did all those accessories on that day. Like the only thing is, like I said, is Tuesdays it was like shoulders, and I might have did like some biceps and heavy like tricep work on Thursdays. But other than that, that's like what we did.
And did you just go up to a heavy weight, or like what was your like? I think I heard you say that you used to just max out all the time, or it was like a competition when you train.
Like when we squatted, like Saturdays, Rick goes off. He trained us on the bar speed and how the bar moved. If the bar's moving good, he would take you up and keep taking you up, keep taking you up. I mean, a lot of times at the beginning, if you were, at the beginning, lifter is not like an elite. When you're an elite lifter, and towards the end, when you're hitting these big numbers, you didn't need to take as many hits because you're going pretty heavy. Like, you know, to get us strong, we would single on the way up and might double down. We do a lot of reverse bands, overloads, and that took us to a certain spot. And then once you got your numbers so high, especially even pound for pound, um, we do things so much weight with the suit bottoms on, so much with the straps up, so much with reverse band. Like he'd want to, like, if we knew the next meet we were going into, our opener was going to be 1,000 pounds, you're going to feel 1,000 pounds in some shape or form every week. So it might be starting out with reverse bands, and then it might be he's going to build you up and you go past that, and then you're going to be doing 1,000 pounds with your straps down until now you got your straps up, and then you're doing well over that. I mean, but some shape or form, you're going to be doing your opening it. You're going to be hitting that every week. We even did it the week before meets, and we didn't. We went that heavy. Whatever your opener was, you were hitting that 7 days out. So I mean, but
So
we
in
had
your mind, was it a lot of like skill development? Because that sounds like that's like a skill to max out. And then were you building your strength by doing like the bodybuilding? It sounds like you did kind of bodybuilding.
well, we did build our strength by like the heavy overloads with the reverse bands. Like, he would really overload us. We might do two really like we do like a 70-pound jump, depends on what band they were. And then we might do, depending on how that looked, he would call us another one. So you might be squatting 1,200 pounds with reverse bands. And at the top that feels pretty heavy. But you know, you gradually worked up on both sets. Like, you're raw with just raw weight with straps down would eventually go up until you got to a certain spot, and then you would add the bands, and then those would go up, and then every week all those numbers kept moving up. Like, then we could, when you felt like you were getting so heavy with the straps down, like, okay, man, he's getting to a point where with straps down, that's kind of where he's maxed out at. So next week, now we're going to add straps up, and then we'll go up past that. But we're going to also do the same thing with bands, so we can even go heavier on bands. And but like it was like there was a lot of strong guys in there, so like we were all trying to like out squat each other, so no one wanted to be that guy that was the last one or the one that didn't get to go heavier. So he used we used the reverse bands. I mean, a lot.
Yeah,
Uh,
you didn't want to be the guy that rung the bell and quit.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You wanted to be the one that had the highest number. But so, with equipment, start out with in briefs. We do things in briefs heavy, switch to suit bottoms, and then bottoms with straps up. And that's just kind of like stages that we trained in. But we trained in our gear a lot. So like you had it down come the day of the meet, like you had it down. So that's what I feel like you have to do. Like, cause I mean, if you're gonna play football, you probably ought to play with a football, not a basketball. I mean, playing with because that's what you're playing with the day of the show. So that's what we did. We didn't like we're gonna get strong over here, and then we're gonna be able to come over here, and it should have made this stronger. Like we got stronger on the one thing that you have to do in the meet, and you got really good at it. You got to be like a professional. You got to know how to use exactly where you push your knees, exactly where you place everything, and that's how you get good in it is by doing it all the time.
Did you like switch out bars and stuff a lot? Did you do that kind of stuff like West Side, or so it was always straight bar, always the same technique?
Yep. mean, the assistance work, heavy good mornings or like, we would do other things on the assistance work that also make you strong, but as far as squatting, we always squatted with the straight bar.
Like always competition. Did you do like box squats or was it like free squats?
We never box squat. We only,
Never.
we never box squat because you can't box squat in a meet. So he's like, we're not box squatting. You're not going to squat like that in a meet. So we never box squatted.
Wow. So totally different than West Side then in that sense.
Yeah. Yep. But you had to learn on your own, like how to set your hips back. You still got to reach back. You still got to push your knees open. You got to learn those things, and to get to depth without a box there too, because you have to do it like that in the meet. But I'm not saying they're not great tools or anything. It's just not what we did.
Yeah, no, I mean there's a logic to it. The way you're explaining it is like, and that I mean it probably works differently for everybody too, right? Like some people might
Yeah.
respond
I just,
better one
I
way or
just,
the other.
I mean, I think too, at some point, if you take a great athlete and you had him train both ways, he's probably going to be great both ways. There's more than one way to get there. There's not only just one way to get there. And when you get somebody that's just got it, man, they're strong, they're mentally strong, they're going to probably do great in either way, honestly, I think.
Like it's more the person than the method.
I mean, obviously the method works too, but if you got a great method, but you got a guy that's a head case, how great is it going to work? Now, if you got a guy that's mentally just dialed in, zoned in, and like determined and tough, and he's not scared of nothing. Well, which guy do you want on your team,
Yeah.
right?
Is there a lot of head cases in powerlifting?
Yeah. Like, yeah, man. You know how it is. People, yeah, there's head cases in everything, but powerlifting too. Yeah. But, like, it's like the more that they trust you as a coach, it's, better. I mean, head cases too is like there's some guys that are really great gym lifters. Man, they're really strong in the gym, and they go into a meet with some pressure on them, and they suck. I mean, man, they can't hold it together. Man, they're too nervous. Man, they go to meets and they can't put it together. Which I understand. Like a big part of that is you just have to get more meets under your belt, and you just have to do more, and eventually you're just going to be more mature as a lifter because you've put the time in and you've competed so much. It's just like you realize it's just like another day, and you just only get good at things by doing them a lot. It doesn't matter what you do. You get good at things, you just got to do them a lot. That's why I tell my guys, do all the meets, man. Let's do them all. Like, I mean, that's what we do. The more time you do it, the way I look at it too, is more chances that you have to hit something big. So I always wanted to do all the meets.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's something that could actually be developed then you're saying is your it's not just a somebody's good on performing on competition day and some people just aren't. You could
Yeah,
actually
some people put a lot of pressure on themselves. Some people, there's a lot of different things that go on in people's heads. But the only way that you can, uh, get through that is to put yourself in those situations a lot. I mean, anything you've done in your life, if something's been not, it's very uncomfortable. You don't like something. If you put yourself in that position a whole bunch of times, eventually, if you keep doing it, you're going to deal with it. You're going to adjust, and you're going to be able to figure it out.
yeah. um I'm sure you probably got to like go eat dinner with your family or something. So if you could just to wrap this up, what would you want to tell like your members or the people on your team or people about your gym, like the values that you have? I mean they probably know, I'm guessing from the type of person you are, but like maybe something people wouldn't know, or just something that means something to you about Big Iron Gym. What would you want to say about that, like maybe some core values and what it means to you? that people might not know too, or
I would
maybe that they do know?
I would just say for like what means a lot to me and what Big Iron Gym and what God has just put me in this place, to I don't know, the spot that I'm in, I guess, to be around a bunch of people, to meet people is man, we're all just living life. We're all trying to get better at things. Not nobody's perfect. And so like helping people, no matter what it is or what they're going through, I'd say helping people be the best version of themselves is where it's at, man. It's not we all got different goals, different things that are important to us. But everybody's is different, and that's okay. So just be there for people, man. Um, Going through life, um, you never know when your time's up. And like, what? Think about the things that. What do you want to be remembered of? I want to be remembered of, man. I never judged nobody, man. No matter what people went through, I really, um, I really wanted the best for people, and hopefully, I did it right with whoever's watching or my members. Hopefully, I did it right with them. Hopefully, I talked to them. Hopefully, I treated them good. Hopefully, I helped them in some sort of way, looking at something correctly. I'm an imperfect person, so sorry if I did things wrong, but um, I just don't judge anybody, man. I just try and help people for where they're at. And it's just simple, man. That's it. Get a goal. See yourself doing the things that you dream about, and and really like you can do them. But you have to have a plan. If you can't see it, then no one's going to see it. But if you can see something and visualize it, and your heart's in it, you can pretty much do whatever you want to do. But at the end of the day, what do you want to be remembered as?
Sweet man. Well, thank you so much. It's interesting because we didn't really go over the story that you already shared, though. You shared it on Dave Tate's Table Talk podcast. So anybody that's listening to this, just look up Shawn Frankl on Elite FTS, the Dave Tate's Table Talk podcast. Listen to that podcast, and also I saw one you did with Mark Bell's on Mark Bell's podcast where you shared the story about Rick and how you led him to God. Right there at the end of his life. Um, that was the greatest thing I ever heard, man. And I think a lot of it from me, I was just like, it's something I guess I've wanted to experience in a way, you know, and I try to talk to people, I try to share the gospel with people, and but when I heard your story, it just like I was like, wow, it's more about how you live than what you say to people. It's not about like convincing somebody or talking or a conversation. It's like literally your testimony was 10 years of living, and then he got diagnosed with cancer and he was going to die, and it's like just the I don't know, the sharpness of that story, like the extremes of it. I was like, wow, that is like just the most incredible thing I've ever heard. And it's crazy to hear that in a powerlifting podcast.
Yeah.
So that was super impactful to me, man. And so I was like really excited to do this podcast. And so yeah, I recommend people listening to that. And yeah, you're talking about God speaking to you, and I actually got really nervous, man, before doing this podcast, which I don't get nervous. I'm not that type of person, but because God told me that this was going to be the most impactful podcast I ever did. And I was like, wow. And so I'm going to share it. I'm definitely going to share it. I know a lot of power lifters, tons. I got tons of connections with tons of power lifters. So I'm going to share this. And I didn't plan on you sharing all that stuff about God, which I think coming from a guy like you will actually reach people and resonate, and they'll actually listen because they respect who you are as a person, just like Rick did.
I didn't plan on it either. Honestly, I didn't really know what you're going to ask. I'm just like going in, just be real. Like, yeah, honestly, even Rick's funeral, man, like at Rick's funeral, they asked about six or so of us to speak. and that they were going to give us a time to go up front and speak. And I thought of so many different things, and I'm like, Rick just wants real. So like, I'm not writing nothing. I'm going to go up there and I'm just going to share Rick, whatever's in here, and just say it. And so like, we showed up a little early, to the service, and the pastor performing the funeral said, "Hey, why don't you guys come back in this room? Because you guys are gonna sit here. Do you have what you're gonna say ready and this and that?" And all these guys are pulling out their papers and all this. I didn't have anything, and I'm like, okay, these guys are all organized here, and I'm just winging this. But like, man, like if I was talking to Rick, man, he just wants to hear from me, like what do you got to say, man? Like, so I just want to just be real. And that's today, doing this. There was nothing planned, man. I didn't have a plan like, oh, I want to talk about God and this and that. I just came in here to talk. Whatever comes out, whatever, man. So that's what I did. Hopefully it did. Hopefully, even if it impacted one person, um, to challenge their faith with God. I mean, man, everybody's, he did it for all of us the same, man. Like, you don't have to be he did everybody special to him, Every person is special to God. He made you, So you are the one. You are the one that can make a difference in people that me and you, we will never be able to reach people um, that God has in line for somebody else to meet. And good thing that there's a lot of us that God puts different people in all of our paths. And some of these people listening, you might be the person in the path to reach somebody that I'll never be able to reach or that you will never be able to reach, but you are the one. So, and there might be people on here just questioning. I don't even know about my faith. This world's crazy these days, man. It is crazy these days, man. And maybe you went through some stuff. Maybe you lost a brother or sister, or parent. Maybe something bad's happened to somebody bad, that it was close to you and it hurt. I know all about what that feels like too, man. That's hard. It's tough, and it's okay that you have hard times. It's okay sometimes that you are real and question God, like God, what's going on? Like it's okay, man. I mean, you've been that way to family members before. You've been that way to brothers and sisters. It's okay to be upset sometimes and ask why. But at the end of the day, man, you got to come back to God because He's the only one that can heal you. He's the only one that can take the burden off you. He's the only one, man. He's the only way. And it's okay to have those feelings, but to come back and go, man, I need God in my life to get me through all this stuff because He's done that for me. He's got me through a lot of things. He's got me. I mean, I've lost several people, like a lot of people in my life, and I can tell you that even with Rick, the one person that always believed in me in my life, the one person, man, that just was always believing in me that I was missing. I was missing somebody that believed in me, and he believed me the most. And when I lost him, that was the hardest loss. And I just know now. I know I'll see him again someday because I watched him give his life to God, and so I know I'll see him again someday. And that right there keeps me um, really, that's what keeps me going. Like I know I'm going to see Ricky, you know. And good thing, I just thank God, man, that He allowed me to have this relationship with Him while He was here. He allowed me. He just put these puzzles together, man. He put us together like that. I mean, if it would have went any other way, like, can I say that like Rick would be in heaven right now? I don't know. I mean, hope so, but I don't know. But he orchestrated this whole thing right. Like, I mean, honestly, if you want to think about it, cancer might have saved his life eternally. It might have saved him. If he wouldn't have got cancer, he might not have reached out to God. But you know what? It took a long time, 10 years. And then all of a sudden, he gives his life to God. It's the timing, It's like it's the timing that matters. And right at the end, all you have to do is accept him. It doesn't matter how long you've been a Christian. God doesn't go, hey, how long you been a Christian? I'll let you know if you can make it in or not. You don't do that. Don't care if it's you're on the very tail end of passing, and if you're asking for forgiveness and reaching out to him, he's gonna grab you, man, because he wants you. So.
Well, I'm going to title this podcast "Be Real" with Shawn Frankl, Big Iron Jim. Be real, brother. Hey, thank you, man. Thank you
Hey,
so
thank
much.
you, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah. All right, brother. Have a good night.
All right, you too.
God bless.
Good. God bless. Bye bye.